So with both OTAs and mandatory minicamp over, there's been some players climbing up the ranks while others are in danger of holding onto their roster spots. Well, that's why it's time to look at the state of the entire roster position group by position group in my second annual 53-man roster projection to see how it's all shaping out as the Chiefs gear up for training camp. So let's talk about it. But first, how about those? All right, it's that time of the year again. Now that mandatory minicamp is over, the last 53-man roster projection I did was May 2nd. So we have some changes that are worth talking about. I will also say my voice sounds funny because I'm sick. I have a cold and I'm struggling, but we're going to push through. I'm going to start with 2 quarterbacks, no surprises here. That's Patrick Mahomes and Gardner Minshew, and I'm not really sure I see a reason to keep a third quarterback on the roster right now. In back-to-back years, they've kept 2 on the initial 53, so let's just keep that going with either Bailey Zappi or Chris Oladokun on the practice squad. For running backs, I don't have any changes from my initial projection in May. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell, and Brashard Smith are the 4 for me. As long as Elijah Mitchell stays healthy, I could see him being one of the main backs with Pacheco, keep the young guys in there with Kareem Hunt being the short yardage guy, or use even more as needed guy, and then Brashard Smith is your receiving back on definite passing downs. I'm just not sure if he'll be the primary third down back or not as a rookie because he doesn't yet have a ton of experience in pass protection as a wide receiver turned running back late in his college career. So that does still have me leaving out Carson Steele. He was on the roster last year as a fullback, but with Kareem Hunt going 15 of 18, an 83.3% conversion rate in short yardage situations last year and fumbling 0 times on 228 carries, he's the guy for me. Steele fumbled 3 times on 56 carries in comparison, and I get it. He's a rookie, put in a tough spot because CEH was placed on the NFI list with the mental health stuff he was going through, and then Isaiah Pacheco broke his ankle. But it's the NFL. You got to protect the ball, or you can lose your spot. And so for me, for right now, Steele is the odd man out. With that being said, I'm still rooting for him, and he'd be awesome to have on the practice squad this year, unless Andy Reid puts the trump card in and says, no, I want a fullback on the roster this year, like he did last year with Steele, who isn't technically a fullback. He's a tweener, bigger-bodied running back that they tried out as a fullback last year. Some of you also pointed out in my first projection after the draft that Steele has value on special teams, and you can't ignore that. And I agree. Kareem Hunt is your short yardage guy, but probably not playing special teams. But Carson Steele didn't play a ton of special teams himself. He was out of the top 10 in special team snaps on the roster, so that can be absorbed by somebody else if they have to. For wide receivers, I still don't have any changes here. It's Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Jalen Royals as the definite locks, with Juju most likely a lock, though you could technically move on from him without much of a loss from a contractual standpoint. Still, I think he's locked into the 53-man roster. He's a great offset for Travis Kelce in the middle of the field, a savvy vet with a good feel for his zone coverage, very QB-friendly for Mahomes, and he's willing to do the dirty work in the blocking aspect of things on the offense. So there's the 5 that seem pretty clear-cut to me, with number 6 being Nico Remigio as the team's punt returner. Sure, some of these other standouts at OTAs could provide enough special teams value to justify the Chiefs keeping a 7th, or injuries. That is going to be the game changer for this whole projection come training camp. Injuries could always happen during camp and slide somebody else in there, like Elijah Badger, Tyquan Thornton, or Jason Brownlee. Those guys could climb up the depth chart. Then there's also Justin Ross and Sky Moore out there. And while I don't have Sky Moore making the roster, he will most likely be the next man up if any injuries hit the room. I should also point out that the last 2 years in a row, the Chiefs have went with 7 receivers on the initial 53. And if they do that again, I think Sky Moore has a chance to sneak onto the roster once again. Training camp injuries, or the lack thereof, which I hope is the case, will determine some of this. I'm not sure the plan was to roll with 7 receivers initially last year, for example, but the team thought Hollywood Brown would only miss a few weeks, so he was on there initially before being placed on IR after needing surgery on that sternoclavicular dislocation. This will obviously be one of the most fun position battles to watch at training camp, and I can't wait to see how it all pans out. Let's switch gears to tight ends. They could roll with 3 like they did in 2023, or 4 tight ends like they did initially last year. My roster projection after the draft, I thought 3 felt like a good number, with those being Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, and the undrafted guy out of Clemson, Jake Brenningstool. That's with the thought and belief that Jared Wiley still isn't quite ready to go in his ACL recovery, and he starts the season out on the PUP list. That is still a pretty likely possibility, though Andy Reid did say he felt good about Wiley's progress and said something along the lines of, quote, "There's no issues there in regards to Wiley." So if he doesn't start on the PUP list, it's probably a safe assumption they could keep 4 tight ends on the roster, but for now, I still have 3. Jake Brenningstool stood out early at OTAs, but he hasn't practiced the last few weeks, wasn't out there at minicamp either, with the veteran Robert Tonyan being a primary guy out there. So for now, I am going to switch out Brenningstool for Tonyan based on how much they used him out there. Tonyan was actually the guy standing in for Travis Kelce when he wasn't around, and it's not like Tonyan is a slouch. It's been a few years now, but in 2020, he had 52 receptions for 586 yards and 11 touchdowns with Green Bay, so he can contribute on offense for sure. For Brenningstool, I just need to see him healthy, and if he does that and continues to show out at training camp and a preseason game or two, he is absolutely still in the running to make the roster, and the Chiefs could be afraid of losing Brenningstool to waivers, whereas Robert Tonyan's a vet. He wouldn't have to clear waivers and could sign to the practice squad or something like that. I just need to see Brenningstool stay healthy, and I do think he definitely has a chance to make it. Now, for the offensive line, I do have a couple of switch-ups, but I'm still rolling with 10 of the big guys up front like they have in 3 of the last 4 years. The perceived to be starting 5 after the draft was Jalen Moore, Kingsley Suamataia, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Jawan Taylor. However, Josh Simmons is out there looking awesome ahead of his rehab schedule and slated to be a full go for training camp. So combine that with the fact that Jalen Moore has been dealing with some sort of an injury near the end of OTAs and minicamp, and Josh Simmons could absolutely be the starting left tackle come week 1. It'll be one of the battles to watch on offense for sure, and while I think Kingsley will be given the first true go at the left guard spot, it'll be interesting to see that battle between Kingsley and Mike Caliendo go down. Trey Smith, he was actually the guest on the Kelce Brothers New Heights podcast today, and he shared in that interview that Kingsley and Caliendo will both be in there battling for that left guard spot. Both of those guys will be working their tails off and giving it their all, which is really the same effort everyone on the line has to give because it's one big competition along the line at the end of the day. Now, we know the job security is a little more etched in stone for some along the line compared to others, but it's a great mindset to have regardless. Trey thinks Kingsley's ability is incredible. He's a young guy, but super athletic. Meanwhile, Caliendo is a very high IQ player that just keeps getting better, and it's going to be a great battle. And sadly, I'm sorry to report that during this interview, there was no mention of Trey Smith's contract and how his negotiations are going with the Chiefs. He's currently on the franchise tag and has till mid-July to get a long-term deal done or play the season out on the tag. Well, many people, including myself, thought Trey might not even show up to mandatory minicamp because why risk injury at the sake of a long-term multi-year deal? However, he did show up, which I thought was an awesome gesture on Trey's part. He wants to be here for a long time and loves playing alongside Creed Humphrey and the rest of his teammates, so I hope it happens. It would be tough, after all, to trade away Tooney to the Bears and then potentially lose Trey Smith in free agency next year. So in a perfect world, we get an announcement on Trey Smith reaching a long-term deal with the Chiefs sometime in the next couple of weeks. With that said, I'm not sure Trey Smith showing up to mandatory minicamp signifies they are super close on a deal or anything like that. I just think Trey wanted to be there and put the work in with his teammates. After all, he said today on New Heights that the goal this year is to get another Lombardi, and the time to build upon that starts in the offseason. If you can, go check out that full interview because it was a great one. For the rest of the line, though, Jawan Taylor should still be the starter on the right side of the line. So again, the 5 is going to be right now, I think, Josh Simmons, Kingsley, Creed, Trey Smith, and Jawan Taylor, but we'll see how that battle at left tackle plays out. Some people don't think Jawan Taylor's safe at the right tackle spot, but unless he starts drawing flags, more flags even than a Memorial Day parade or something crazy like that, I think he's probably your right tackle this season. The next 4 I have making the initial 53 are going to be Wanye Morris, Mike Caliendo, Hunter Norzad, and CJ Hansen. I did swap out Ethan Driscoll for CJ Hansen because Driscoll's a tackle, whereas Hansen played along the interior in college. So it's a bit of a toss-up here for me. You could put either of these guys in there if you want. The question is, do they want more interior depth or tackle depth? Right now, there's 4 tackles and 6 interior guys, but this can easily be adjusted and remedied via practice squad elevations and all that if injuries hit the room. And I would think either CJ Hansen or Ethan Driscoll are both safe to make the practice squad. Okay, so that's 25 on offense. And before I get to the defense, which has the same number, I'm going to quickly go through the specialists here. You have long snapper James Winchester, punter Matt Ariza, and kicker Harrison Butker. There is a bit of a punter battle going on, though, between Matt Ariza and the undrafted free agent that was graded as the third best punter in this year's draft class, with that being Eddie Shaplitsky. Ariza struggled at the back half of the season with landing his punts inside the 20. There was so many touchbacks, it was pretty frustrating. Meanwhile, Eddie was a top 5 punter in college last year, landing punts inside the 20. So you never know how that battle could shake out, and it's one worth watching. Next up, we've got to get into the defensive side of the ball. But first, the NFL season is right around the corner. Well, sorta. I mean, training camp is first, but we know the Chiefs' entire schedule, and Arrowhead is about to go crazy this year. So you definitely need to get yourself some tickets sooner rather than later. Well, that's where the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek, comes right in. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is not only the #1 rated ticketing app, but there's more than 70,000 events listed on their site and app. Speaking of their app, it is super simple to use, and I prefer, honestly, to use the app over their website. And there's plenty of sporting events going on all year long, from Sporting KC, KC Current, the Royals, then you can't forget about concerts, comedians, and festivals. You name it, there's a very good chance there's tickets on SeatGeek. They make the process super easy for you as well, rating tickets on a scale of 1 to 10 so you know if you're getting a good deal. Just look for the green dots because green means good, red means bad. On top of that, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and you know I had to come through for you guys. You can use code HBTC10 for 10% off your next set of tickets on SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code HBTC10. Just make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. Okay, for defense. 25 I said, but let's break it down by position group. I'm keeping the same 4 defensive tackles from my earlier projection in May, and this is how the Chiefs went the last 4 or 5 years initially. 4 defensive tackles. Those are still going to be Chris Jones, Jerry Tillery, Omar Norman-Lott, and Mike Pennell. You have some flexibility to move somebody like Charles Omenihu and Mike Dana inside at times. Chris Jones can also kick outside as well. So this line is going to be pretty interchangeable when needs be. Fabian Lovett could make a push as well during training camp, so I'm not going to leave out that possibility for him either. Now for defensive ends, still going to roll with 5. George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, Charles Omenihu, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, and the newly drafted Ashton Gelati. Malik Herring should be able to land on the practice squad, and so there's the 10 defensive linemen that I have making it. Now for linebackers, we're going with 6 once again, which is something the Chiefs have done the last 3 out of 6 years. They could have the very athletic undrafted free agent Brandon George. He's the guy with that crazy 9.98 relative athletic score. And the 5th round pick, Jeffrey Bassa, playing a bunch of special team snaps. Jack Cochran is more safe to make it over somebody like Brandon George, as he can fill in at middle linebacker, but also played the 2nd most special team snaps on the roster last year. So he's most likely making it. And then, of course, the 3 main guys out there is going to be Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquill, and Leo Chanel. Cam Jones could also make that roster over somebody like Brandon George if he doesn't impress enough, because Cam played 284 special team snaps himself in 2024. Basically, half the guys in the linebacker room that make the roster will be contributing heavily on special teams, so pick your poison with a couple of them and let's run it. After that, give me 6 corners once again, which is what KC's done the last 3 or 4 years, but I'm going to flip one of the guys in the secondary from my initial projection back in May. I had Joshua Williams not making the roster, with the reason being he was basically phased out of the defense in the playoffs. He played 0 snaps through 3 games on defense, but he did contribute some on special teams. However, I just have a hard time letting him go right now, so I'm putting him back in, and I'll take Christian Roland Wallace out. Roland Wallace barely played any defensive snaps in the playoffs either. My reason for putting Roland Wallace over Joshua Williams back in May is because Roland Wallace is kind of a backup slot guy, whereas Joshua Williams is more of an outside corner. So flip of a coin, gonna go with Joshua Williams this time. And I know what some of you might be thinking, Cole, what about Najee Johnson? You still have this guy making the roster. It must just be because he's your friend and you've had him interview on the channel. Well, the thing is, yeah, I think Najee makes the roster right now, and that's because he played over 50 defensive snaps in the playoffs. Love him, hate him, I'm not sure that it matters if the coaches value him and want him on the roster. That's largely what I'm going off of right now. Snaps played in the playoffs. But either way, it's going to be a battle for a lot of these guys. Just stay healthy and stack good days at camp, and let's see how the room plays out. I'm not going to cry or weep one way or another. I do know that the 4 roster locks in that room is going to be Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, Christian Fulton, and Noel Williams. The last two will be a mix of whoever Dave Merritt feels the most comfortable rotating in on defense from time to time or when injuries hit the room as a depth piece, and then who Dave Toub finds the most valuable on special teams. Next up, the safety room doesn't need any changes at all, and I feel really confident about this one. They've opted for 4 safeties the last 4 years in a row, and so for me, going with 4, with those still being Jaden Hicks, Brian Cook, Chamari Connor, and the newly brought back veteran Mike Edwards. Deion Bush, still, in my opinion, should be pretty safe to make the practice squad. He's a valuable guy to have around, but I don't think he makes the initial 53. And then with the safety room, I just hope Jaden Hicks takes that big step up in year 2 like the coaching staff hopes for, because replacing Justin Reed is not going to be the easiest task in the world. So there you have it. There's my way too early initial 53-man roster projection 2.0. You guys got to let me know where you agree, where you disagree in the comments down below. I know it's too early to tell here. The real work starts when the pads come on at training camp. My ultimate hope is the roster stays healthy throughout camp and you can just have some nice competitive battles and maybe we see some upsets. My whole mindset with that is best of luck and may the quote-unquote better player win the spot. But hey, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?